have 1 week off until my next assignment. I'm about halfway through the break. I washed the outside of my van from the Dust Bowl we're working in, but I have not touched the inside other than I turned the fridge off, let it defrost, and then I brought the batteries in when we wrapped whatever day that was, and they've just been sitting on charge in my front entry. So I'm going to return those to the cart right now, and then I'm going to take out this tripod and hose it down. If this is your first click on one of my videos, my name's David. I'm an independent director of photography. I've been a freelancer for 25 years. I've worked in feature films, episodic TV, commercials, broadcast promos, professional sports, feature packages, news magazine shows, corporate, heavy manufacturing, some military hardware type stuff, law enforcement training videos, TV news, and sports is where I started when I was in high school and kind of got the bug for filmmaking in college, and then corporate broadcast agency work, and now my career has somewhat gone full circle, relocating here to Texas, South Texas. I've been shooting a bunch of freelance news, as you can see in some of my previous videos. So I've, in the last couple years, pivoted from an RE platform. I have 2 Amiras. I sold one. I have 1 remaining. To the Sony FX9 platform. I ordered my first camera, this one, pre-order before they were shipping. So I think it was Q4 2019, and this came in like January or February of 2020, and I didn't use it a whole lot the first 6 months of 2020. But now, last couple years, this has been my A cam, and I bought a second one. I wanted to actually get an FX6 for my second cam, but they were back ordered and I just needed another camera. So bought a second FX9. Actually, ultimately, I think it was the right decision for the variety of work I do. I find like right now, last couple years as a freelancer, it is a Sony world. And the FX9 and now the FX6 are kind of like the standard tool that you can shoot events, conferences, interview-driven format. You can do news packages with them. You can do some of the mid-range TV spots and smaller stuff. It's just a good all-around camera, the whole line, the whole FX line for a freelancer. So now I know this is like a full-frame camera is far from ideal for shooting news or like a reality type of driven content, primarily because of the depth of field just being way too narrow, and the bigger factor is the lack of magnification range on lenses. Like the 28 to 135 kit zoom is what I'm running on here. It's an f4, not really a problem for me because of the dual ISO. I shoot a lot of morning and evening live shots for news with it up at like in the high ISO 4000 mode, and then I gain it up to like 10,000 or 12,000 ISO, shooting at a 4. But for most things I do in news, I'm running between an 8 and a 16. Start to get some diffraction issues and softening in the picture when I get near 11 and 16. But yeah, I would say 5, 6, 8 split all the way to a 16 is sort of my working range, specifically because I'm shooting news, and if we have an interview or a correspondent in the foreground, they're reporting on the thing that's going on behind them. So it's important that it's not just a fuzzy blob and it looks like a cheap green screen. I mean, the network spent the money to put us out there on location. We need to see the location. So in a perfect world right now, I would own the Sony 750 2/3 inch 3-chip camera, their top end camcorder for news and network TV production. But I need a hybrid that I can do everything with. Like next week, I'm doing 3 days of like heavy industrial with heavy equipment, and we're gonna shoot FX3 and FX9s, and it'd probably be an okay assignment on a 2/3 inch camera, but I'm working for an agency, and it seems like all the agencies now love and have for a long time big sensor cameras. So anyway, if I gotta own one camera, it's this one. So this has evolved for me over the last 2 years of shooting more and more news, mix of live shots, B-roll, and then interviews, sit-down interviews, as well as like the man on the street, spontaneous type of stuff. So here's where I'm at. There's a few more changes I want to make, and I should preface this with the understanding that I despise camera rigs. Hate it, hate it, hate it. I want a battery, a body, and a lens, and I want to just go shoot. I want simplicity, lightweight, minimal complication, and I want it to be like an extension of my hands. It's something I don't have to go hunt for buttons to do things. I just want to be able to shoot Simple, 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 which is why I love ARRI cameras and just that traditional ENG format. I mean, that platform has evolved over 40 years now, I guess, of electronic news gathering. Like, they have perfected the battery, body, singular lens. Now go tell stories. So first up, kit zoom, which we talked about. I shoot mostly in 5K mode, and that's because when this camera is set to shoot at 1080i, it's sampling at 5994. It won't actually run at the full frame 6K. You have to window down to 5K. And same if I'm working for a 720p network, they want me shooting at 60 is the standard. Now the exceptions would be like feature packages for pro sports. We'll frequently shoot 2398, but any other type of news content, we're shooting at 60. So I'm at 5K. 28 mil at 5K is not quite wide enough when I'm handheld trying to shoot people like a man on the street. It's just a little too tight. So I also carry my older PL Canon 17-120 in the truck, and if I know, it kills my shoulder, but if I know I'm going to be doing a lot of MOS where I need to be wider, I stay on the 17-120. Another reason I prefer the 17-120 is it's got a proper broadcast grade servo zoom. It'll go from 0 to a slow creep to a super fast zoom. So if I need to do pushes and pulls off of like a correspondent during a live shot where we want to reveal something in the background, push into it and then pull back to the correspondent. It's a little clunky with this lens, but it's beautiful and smooth on the Canon 17-120. I recently put this matte box on here, small rig. Now I own a couple of different high-end matte boxes. I have an ARRI MB20 I purchased new. The MB20 and the ARRI FF5 follow focus, those two things combined cost more than this camera, lens, and battery setup. It just kind of blows my mind now that for, I don't even know, was it like $200? Maybe it's less. You can buy a reasonably robust clip-on matte box. So I'm running this small rig. I actually bought this for a different project, used it once, and it's been sitting on the shelf. And then I realized, oh yeah, I can get the step-down ring for the 28-135 and just throw it on there. So we'll go there first. It took me a little while to figure this out, how to get a clip-on going on this kit zoom. So instead of it being a compression adapter that fits on the OD of the lens, it's actually threaded like a filter, and it screws on to the lens, just like a filter you can see here. So it's a 95 mil thread. This is made by Small Rig, and it steps up to, shoot, I don't remember. It's whatever the diameter is of the Small Rig clip-on. So I'm thinking for my Sigma Art prime lenses, I'm going to purchase the same step-up rings for each lens so that I can always run this clip-on. Now in a news environment, I don't need to run a bunch of filters. My primary use for this is those sunrise and sunset shots where I have the sun behind the correspondent and I'm getting lens flared. So I've got the top eyebrow so I can brow down and control flare, as opposed to having to clamp on a French flag or set a C-stand with a flag. This is just quick and fast and always on the camera, and then it doubles as a lens cap when I'm in transport mode. Now the one place that we'll talk about this in a minute, but when I'm doing like on the shoulder live shots with the on-camera light, the eyebrow is cutting from like chest down on the correspondent, that it gets flagged off their body. So I need to rework that a little bit. We'll talk about that in a moment. So one of the big issues with shooting news is the gear just gets beat up. I mean, you're moving so fast. We're in these bad environments, dusty, dirty, hot, filthy, noisy. So you can see this thing is still filthy. I wiped it down a little bit on location when we loaded out last week after a 6-day assignment. Working in the dust the last 3 days, it's pretty dirty. So I like that the Small Rig box is like, it's reasonably robust, but it's also very inexpensive. So I'm not concerned that it's getting scratched and banged and dinged. It's like, serves its purpose. It does hold 2 filters, Panavision size. There's no tray. The filter just slides in there. The only filter I've used on this setup so far is a polarizer 4x565 square, and then you can just rotate the whole box to get a little pull a cut on. I've only used it for the sky, but you know, sometimes you're shooting with glass in the background, like maybe a car windshield reflecting, and you want to control that. Then I waited much too long, but I just added this shape handle. This allows me to quickly articulate the handle up so I can set the camera on the ground or on a table. The one issue with the matte box, you can see it's rubbing right there. I have to leave this fully telescoped or it doesn't clear the matte box, and it does actually rub and offset it a little bit. Next, I've got a Porter Brace shoulder strap. This is again for news. I put this on here when I was working in New York City a couple months ago, working on foot. I had one rolling Pelican and I had to hand carry everything to get around the city. And I've left it on there. It's been useful loading in and out of hotels and just long walks to get shots when I'm shooting scenics. Now, ENG cameras have a special kind of shoulder strap attachment point. FX9 doesn't have that, so I bought a couple of carabiners and I just put a little rubber hose on there so they don't mar up the camera. And I've got one on the viewfinder tube, and then one is on my wooden camera gold mount battery plate in the back here. See that? I just got to be careful it doesn't pinch any cables or spontaneously eject like it just did. It's a little finicky, but it's better than nothing. Base plate, shoulder pad, bridge plate, however you want to refer to it. I'm running the, I don't know if it's Movecam, however it's pronounced, VCT style shoulder pad, and then this is a small rig VCT plate. It's held up pretty well. My one complaint, I have a few of these, is vibrating in the truck and in airline cases. None of their screws are thread locked, so I lost, this is a brand new plate. I've only been using it for maybe a month, and already one of the screws is missing there, and I think one of these on the other side fell off as well. So recommend, if you buy that plate, also invest in some medium strength Loctite and just thread lock all your screws before you send it out in the field. This Movecam shoulder plate has got 15 mil lightweight rods. They don't pass all the way back. They stop about here. There's also a lens support that came with the plate. I removed that. I haven't used it. And then I recently added this Movecam rear side bracket, and that's to accommodate my Electro dual channel audio receiver. And I'm also mounting on the top side of the same plate, I've got this OC monitor, which I purchased for my gimbal, but then I threw it on this camera, and I actually like having it up here so I can flop it this way when I'm operating on a tripod, and if I got to go up on my shoulder, I just flip it around this way. And because this is a $150 monitor, I don't give it any, if it's going to slow me down, I don't like give this thing any extra accommodation to protect it. I just kind of slam it out of the way. It's fallen a few times, screen down, like on the batteries, and like, I don't care. It's like, it's disposable. And brightness is okay in the sun. It's 1,000, I think, nits. The color's a little on the magenta side. It's not great, and it is very reflective. But again, I just use it for framing, and it's good for focus too. I have the peaking cranked up pretty high on it. And then I've got the stock EVF, which I don't love. I want to research and see if I can put one of the Sony ENG EVFs on the FX9, if there's like an adapter cable to get it over to this style connector with all the on-screen display. I would, in a heartbeat, spend $2,000 for like the PXW line viewfinder. But I bought this rigid design viewfinder extension tube. I can't actually use the full length. You start running into an issue where the viewfinder cable isn't long enough, but having a little bit of extra extension over stock has been wonderful. And I jump between, like, this is if I'm shoulder mode, it's articulated forward, and if I'm on a tripod, I just pivot it this way so I can be at the back of the camera, and I do all my exposure evaluation through the eyepiece, and then I run, if I'm on a tripod, I run this under the viewfinder. So let's see, it's kind of tricky with one hand. So this will be underneath, and this is on top at whatever my comfortable eye height is. So then at any point I can look in the eyepiece if I need to, working out in sunlight, but I've got the OC for holding frame and evaluating focus. And then I'm running this just off a hyper thin HDMI cable, and I've got all the on-screen data enabled over HDMI but disabled on SDI. Now, one issue I've got with this side plate with the Electro receiver is it's very difficult to get to the BNC connectors. So I'm in the process of making little 6-inch jumpers with barrels. I'm just gonna have these little tails hanging out here, and maybe I'll tie them off this kip lever. So for two reasons: one, access, but two, shooting news, I'm constantly patching and unpatching from the live view throughout the day and throughout the week, and I don't want to burn out the chassis connectors on the live view and the camera. I'd much rather be burning out a barrel connector. So that's my plan before I go out in the field again, is to get those tails installed. I've seen a few other shooters with this same setup, but they're running a side plate up here, which I'm realizing now is a better location for the audio receiver, because here BNCs, but also the XLRs, are difficult to seat. For on camera, I've got just an inexpensive shotgun mic with a wind shield, and then my son 3D printed these bushings to increase the diameter of the mic so it fits in a Sony shoe without flopping around. And then I run my on-camera mic by default. It's in channel 2, and I've got my electro receiver channel 1 going into channel 1. And then if I have to put 2 lavs up, obviously I run a second cable off this receiver into channel 2 of the camera. Which brings us to audio kit. This pretty much covers my needs. Shooting news, stick mic, Sennheiser MD46. I just upgraded to this mic. It sounds fantastic in high noise environments. Like, we can be on the side of the freeway with trucks roaring past, and I still get broadcast acceptable audio out of my subjects. And then Sanken Cause 11D, I have 3 of these wired in TA5 for the electro wideband transmitters. And then I just have only got a week of time, actually I guess it's been 2 weeks of assignments, on this TA5 to 3-pin XLR adapter. I only have 1 of these, and I'm going to order 2 more. My next order from B&H, I'll get 2 more of these. So Neutrik, all 3 of my, I forget who the manufacturer, Ambient makes these. I bought the wrong ones. I bought these Electro branded ones when I purchased my first Sankens, and they don't actually work patched to a mixer or a camera. They only work when patched into a Electrosonics 3-pin block transmitter. So if I'm doing a stand-up on the tripod, I go hardwired for a live shot, 3-pin XLR straight into the camera. But if we're doing a handheld walk and talk, or if I'm just like man on the street, or I'm shooting like a component for a package, then I jump over to my electro wideband transmitter. And up until 2 weeks ago, if I were doing a live shot in a windy situation, I would switch over to a shotgun mic with a furry on it, because the little metal windscreens on the lavs can't handle high wind. They just are okay with like low and moderate wind. But I was recently introduced to these type of, I'll put the name on, I forget the name of them, but I just did a week of live shots, 6 days with this furry in windy situations. No discernible wind problems off air. You can watch my previous video to get a sound check example of how great this sounds. So I don't think I'm going to be busting out the boom pole that much for live shots going forward. Shark fin dual battery bracket. This serves a couple of purposes. Significantly more runtime. I can load a lot more accessories on the camera that were running off a battery, like an on-camera light, audio receiver, onboard monitor, and I have recently been running the live view off the dual battery plate as well. Previously I was hanging an additional gold mount battery off my tripod with a carabiner to power this live view 300, but now I like running it off the camera. I can get through like 4 hours of morning news, doing a hit. So I'm up for say 20 minutes, and then I power down for 40 minutes. I'm up for 20 minutes. I can do 4, maybe 5 hours of that off of just these 2 batteries, powering all of the accessories. The next reason for the dual battery bracket is this camera with the kit zoom, even without the matte box, it's still very front heavy. So a lot of the weight is on my forearm using the pistol grip. So I get fatigued rather quickly. And I found even though the camera overall is heavier, the center of gravity is closer to the shoulder pad when I'm running 2 95 watt hour batteries. On camera light, now I only build this when I know there's going to be a situation or a chance that we'll be going handheld in low light situations for a stand-up. I need to modify this, another item I'm ordering. So you can see here, if I leave the eyebrow on, the beam gets cut like just around their chest level for your kind of standard live shots. So I got to remove the eyebrow, but even with the eyebrow removed at this angle, the lens is cutting the light off like their kind of belly area. So if I get a little wider, it falls off into darkness. So I'm gonna get a Noga arm that goes from the hot shoe to mount that light right here on top of the matte box. And I also want to switch to a smaller, lighter weight bicolor LED that's D-tap powered. I'm just using this newer unit that I've had for many, many years. I've got a couple of them. It's just kind of big and bulky. It does the job, but it's a little big, and my bracket's all beat up from years of abuse. All right, I think that's it for this week. Since I got it off, I don't have much more to showcase. Let me know if you got a suggestion for a good ENG on-camera light that can run over the lens. And I'm probably going to upgrade that monitor at some point to something slightly better, like 3000 nit. I'm looking at the Feel World on Amazon. I believe it does HDMI pass-through. And that'll be useful for me on my FX3 gimbal because I want to come out of the camera into the monitor, out of the monitor into my Hollyland transmitter. Obviously, I can't do that with this unit since it's a dead end. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching.